Hello, Pretoria visitors and residents, and welcome to the Splinter Magic Show. I'm your host, Baby Omega, and I stream on Splinterlands TV every Wednesday from 9 to 11 in the morning and every Sunday from 9 to 10 in the morning. And today, I guess nobody yet joined, but when you do, you can find out that we have an amazing guest with us tonight, and that's one of the founders of the Allie coin, Mr. Mason. And now we'll get him on screen. Hey, Mason,
Hello,
how are you doing?
doing well.
How are you doing?
It's always a good day in crypto to
Yes,
join in the metaverse.
and in Pretoria, because now you're in Pretoria. It's the land
Oh,
of
what a great place to
Splinterlands.
be in.
Yes. So, do you want to first talk about Splinterlands or the Ali coin? What?
It's your show. You lead the way. I'm happy
Okay.
to talk about whatever.
Yeah. Well, I want to start with Ali coin since I'm interested. Like now that you somehow are interconnected in a way with Splinterlands, uh, do you have any plans of making it more accessible for Hive users? Because jumping on another network like Solana is kind of like at least for me it's kind of a stepping stone, and I'm sure for many people that are used to Hive. And I think there is a big community to that you can grab on Hive. So any plans of some interconnectivity between the networks?
So I still don't understand how hard it is to get a coin on Hive in the first place and to build a bridge between it. It does seem like it's connected to a lot of different blockchains. So if there's a way to easily make that happen, yeah, I think we'd be really open to setting up like a liquidity pool on Hive or putting some coin on there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
like
I know you just recently moved to Solana. Was it Solana?
yeah, we moved to Solana because we were on. I mean, we were on a chain that is maybe a little similar to Hive, but much smaller. It was just like for the Rally ecosystem, which was a bunch of social tokens on a kind of centralized platform where the blockchain was like literally one server just spitting out blocks, and so because it was just one server, it's actually it's kind of a blockchain of blockchains. It's called Forte, and they allow anyone to start up their own blockchain. And so Rally used them as an infrastructure provider to launch their blockchain, and then they helped creators launch coins. Which back in 2018, like there weren't all of these cheaper alternative blockchains that were known of. I mean, maybe Hive existed, but we certainly
Did
didn't
yeah,
know about that.
yeah.
And Rally really helped us, get away from all of the Ethereum fees and the Bitcoin fees and launching a coin. And then Solana started to blow up, later in like 2020, and that's when we realized that we were missing out on the wider infrastructure of blockchains by having our coin on this like siloed side chain where there aren't very many decentralized applications that you could tap into. Like even Hive has more than Rally had. You had the ability to swap your coins and bridge out Rally, and that was pretty much it. On Hive, at least you have like that, different DEX marketplaces where you can trade all sorts of different things,
And
including like the Splinterlands currencies and the Splinterlands, like licensed nodes and vouchers and all that type of stuff.
and not to
We
forget,
needed that.
not to forget,
Sorry, go
Hive
ahead.
is also a social platform. Like it, I think it binds together with a social token, a social platform. And yeah, I'm just saying now that there is some kind of interest from the Splinterlands community to that coin, and yeah, with not maximalists, but people that are used to Hive, kind of like they don't want to go anywhere else because of all the good things we get on Hive. So I'm thinking maybe you can reach to quite a lot of people by simply having some kind of connectivity, I think.
So, do you know what that process is like to launch a new coin on Hive?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not that tech savvy, but I'm
Okay.
sure that there are a lot of tech savvy people in Splinterlands community, and I'm sure somebody, like if you reach out, I'm sure they'll be more than happy to reach out to you, like to answer you and guide you if need be. But there's a lot of third third party tools created by Splinterlands community, not by the team. So a lot of people that
See,
can actually.
Rondon in chat is saying that it's pretty easy. It just costs money. Do you have any idea what it costs? I mean, we don't mind paying our way. Like Alicoin has a treasury of assets that we've built up over time. That was like one really nice thing about the Rally ecosystem was that they had this whole reward structure. So like the more people that you brought to Rally, it was kind of like a social form of mining.
We'll see.
And so
Rondon
we
also.
we brought Allie's audience over to the Rally platform, and for that we were getting a lot of Rally rewards. And then we used those rewards to build up a treasury of various assets. So we had Rally in there. We had the coin backed by the Rally token, but we also picked up Ethereum and USDC and some other stuff. And then we started making investments into random things on behalf of the coin community. And so we've built up a treasury it was a lot healthier in the bull market, but it's still pretty hefty even right now. And so we look to spend that on things that we think really enhance the Alicoin ecosystem. And so, one thing we picked up was a Splinterlands node. And if it costs money to create, a bridge system between Alicoin on Solana and Alicoin on the Hive blockchain, we'd be happy to do that if that's something that, the Splinterlands audience would be interested in us doing. Spending money if nobody's going to pick up the coin or it's not going to create more activity for the coin is probably not worth it. But it seems like, we've gotten really good reception from the Splinterlands community so far that I'd be happy to front the money and set that system up.
Yeah, and also Rondon said that, but if you talk to Agrod, perhaps a deal could be worked out, and Rondon should know. So, well, I cannot speak for the whole community, obviously, but I know that since the whole partnership started, and since I enjoyed your streams with Alex Traza, I was thinking about picking up some coins, but then again, I don't have assets on Solana. I don't want to start now with another block. I mean, I've been on enough blockchains already, so I was thinking like,
Yeah.
for me would be perfect. I definitely would have picked some Ali coins if it was somehow accessible with any of the currencies that I own at the moment, and unfortunately it's not. So I was just thinking, I'm thinking maybe there are another people in the community. I mean, a lot of people in the community that are interested, but just don't want to make the jump to another network. I mean,
Yeah, I can understand that. I guess, I'm the type of person I totally understand that because when I had to learn Hive for Splinterlands, I was a little bit opposed to it, but I find that it's not as big of a deal as I make it up to be in my head a lot of the times. Like I've joined, I don't know, a dozen blockchains at this point. So the process is very similar. You're like, what's the major wallet? What's the major DEX? What bridge am I going to be using? And then once you do it, you're like, okay, I'm set up. I'm pretty good to go. But I totally hear what you're saying. Like not everybody has as much time to dig into this stuff as I do. And if you're not incentivized to really join that ecosystem because you want it to be a bigger part of your life, then it'd be really nice if that ecosystem could find its way to your home rather than you having to go there. And we do want it to be as accessible as possible. One of the things I really liked about Solana was I thought it would solve a lot of these problems for me because it has the whole token portal wormhole thing that FTX built. So that's like any Solana coin can bridge to like, I don't know, 15 different blockchains through token portal just by default. And Hive is just so small of a blockchain, it doesn't even make that list of 15, which is unfortunate. But if there's a way to do it where we just pay a little bit of money, we get it set up on Tribal Dex or the Hive Swap site. Totally happy to do it. We'll figure it out, and we'll get Alicoin over to the Splinterlands community. It also makes more of a reason to keep doing the Alicoin tournaments in Splinterlands. If people really are interested in picking up the coin, we could like CoinGate tournaments and do things like that. So there's an incentive for people to buy it and hold on to a little bit of it.
yeah, and I'm sure since anyways there was this partnership with Alice Traza and Splinterlands team, I'm sure you can count on all the help from the team. Anyways, they'll be I think more than happy to help you guys since it's a major reach out on Splinterland side, having the connection with all the Alice following. So I mean, I think that's something that's beneficial for both sides actually. So I was just thinking, I mean, obviously you guys know what you do with your coin. I'm just thinking like I was sharing my personal experiences in like why would I want to jump into that coin, but I haven't yet. And yeah, hopefully things will be worked out, and I'll be part of that community as well. I mean, I'm in the
I mean, I
Discord.
appreciate you say we know what we're doing. I think we know what we're doing in some areas, but a lot of it is experimentation, right? Like social tokens are very new. We've things work differently in bear markets than they do in bull markets, and there's always like the ever evolving landscape of blockchains and thriving projects. And so getting other people's perspectives is part of why we know what we're doing. And so I always appreciate hearing from people like you that, hey, this is something that I would find valuable. You probably represent the Splinterlands community better than a lot of people who are currently in the Alicoin community. And so like we need those perspectives, and we need them from you, and we need them from hundreds of other ecosystems.
Yeah, I'm doing my best. Okay, let's jump a little bit into Splinterlands. You're, I would say, relatively new player. First of all, are you playing your own account or do you share account?
So yeah, we're kind of like tag teaming it a little bit, but we've got Allie's account and I do have my own account. They're both in. We hit diamond pretty much every season, and then we get reset into gold, and we kind of just keep grinding it back up to diamond. Getting through diamond, like we haven't been diamond 2 on either account yet. It does seem to get pretty competitive up in the
Yeah, it is.
the higher diamond levels. People have maxed out cards. They have a lot of really powerful untamed stuff. Sometimes you run into level 4 Yonin Zakus, and they're very hard to beat. So that's kind of where we've been maxing out as newer players. But we do have pretty good collections, I'd say, for people who've only been playing for 2 months.
So yeah, no,
Um,
definitely. And so you're talking about both accounts or
yeah, both accounts are separate, and they're both hitting diamond each month.
oh, that's yeah, that's I think tremendous accomplishment, I would say. Um, yeah, I'm
Well,
striking
we're
good
we're
diamond.
professional card game players. We've been doing this for a long time. I've played in the Players Tour and Players Tour finals and Magic and Mythic Championships. So like some of the highest level play in that game. Allie's played obviously in some of the highest level in Hearthstone. I've joined her in a couple of those tournaments. I've done pretty well in like Dream Hacks and various other tournaments. So we've taken card games very seriously our whole lives, and if we jump into a new one, we want to take it seriously too. So we figured out. I'm also pretty good at figuring out crypto ecosystems. So obviously, Splinterlands is a combination of those two things. So I jumped in, I figured out, what cards are powerful, what cards are good value to own, based on their cost versus their performance in the game. And then I put some money in and picked up the things that I thought I needed, like a Splinterlands node. And I've been just kind of like seeing what it's like to try and grind through the game and level up. I don't want to just like dump 50 grand into the game and have a maxed out collection, because I think part of the game is trying to level up your collection. And so I wanted to not start on the bottom floor, but somewhere where I felt like, okay, I could be competitive, but still sort of experience the part of the game, which is growing your collection and grinding for resources.
So how was the whole experience from scratch for you? What got your attention when you decided you want to move up leagues, and actually what are your maybe goals, like where you plan to be in, like, let's say half a year if things go your way?
So I missed the last part of that.
Like where you see yourself like in 6 months,
Okay,
Splinterlands
yeah, yeah.
wise,
So
everything goes your way, like what's your
So to
goals?
answer your first question, on the new player experience, when I decide that I wanted to put some money in, I think Allie and I were like, we get a lot of sponsor reach outs, so usually we decide like, okay, let's try out the game to see if we like it and we want to pursue the sponsorship, and we started playing some Splinterlands on a totally basic account, with like those starter cards. And I think, we played for a couple hours one night just to see what it was like. And we had a lot of fun. Once we started, getting more into the game and talking about the strategies and seeing, I really love, like, the thing that I think really made me fall in love with the game was like the varying mana costs on the games. And so we were like, okay, what if we play this splinter when it's lower mana and this splinter when it's higher mana? And we were doing these things with like the basic cards, the lowest level of the game, and it was still pretty interesting for us as seasoned card players. there were some new mechanics we were being introduced to. Like we've loved auto battlers, but sometimes they get really repetitive. Like we played a lot of Battlegrounds. I find that game super repetitive because it's like you're just doing the same thing every game. There's different like heroes. There's like 20 heroes or something in that game, but they all play out pretty similarly for the most part, except for some very unique ones. But Splinterlands, like even at the most basic level, was already feeling like very different. And then as we started progressing through the game a little bit more, they were knocking off the different colors and they were adding the rule sets to the game. And that's when I was like, okay, the game seems like it gets even more interesting as you get into the later stages of it. I'd like to see how the game plays out in that way. And so I was like, let me pick up some cards to start playing in silver. And then once I was playing in silver, I was like, okay, I'd like to progress to gold. I felt comfortable enough putting the money in to get, a basic gold card collection, a lot of Chaos Legion cards that weren't as expensive, but were still somewhat competitive. I found certain strategies like just like Kelia and Blue, where you could pick up some really cheap sneak guys and you could just beat on their back line, and that actually tend to beat a lot of people who are even playing like more expensive lineups. And so I was like, okay, I can see the appeal of the game. There's a lot of variety. It's fun. They're quick matches. It's kind of addicting to just keep hitting the Q button, and you're earning resources as you play. Let me put more like I'm big into DeFi and things like that. So I put a little bit of money into a protocol. I see what the yield is like. I see if I'm enjoying being in that ecosystem. And I was getting a little bit of that same feeling of joining a new DeFi ecosystem that I liked, that I was like, okay, I'm comfortable making a bigger investment in this ecosystem to earn more resources and play the game at a higher, more interesting level. And then where do I see myself in 6 months? I think it really depends on how the landscape of play to earn games evolve. So Splinterlands is very much in like the DeFi economic category of a play to earn game. Some like to compare it to something like Skyweaver. And I know this is a Splinterlands TV podcast and Twitch channel, but I'm going to talk about other play to earn games
Yeah,
and make
that's fine.
comparisons here because what we do at Allie Coin is we look at the whole landscape of play to earn games and we try to like teach our community about for each individual person, what is it that they're trying to get out of their gaming experience and which ecosystem do they kind of want to be filtered into with their time based on what they're looking to get out of it. Skyweaver is another play to earn game that we're looking at right now that Allie's probably going to be playing some of on her stream. That game is a bit more like Hearthstone, except that the cards are still NFTs on the blockchain, so you can trade them,
I've
except for
tried it
some of the
out.
soul bounded cards.
I played some of
Um,
it.
yeah, and we love that. Like we wish Hearthstone cards were NFTs so people could trade those and truly own them, but they're not. So Skyweaver is a bit more in the Hearthstone category. It's something where if you played the game for 6 months to a year, you'd probably have a full collection without even putting any money in. Splinterlands is not trying to do that. They're trying to pay you more for your time, especially if you have a larger collection. And there's really like no ceiling on how large your collection can get. Like even if you had a fully stacked out modern collection, if you wanted a fully stacked out wild collection, some of those cards like Shinlo and I don't know, the Prince Julius and stuff are just like insanely expensive, and you probably don't even have those even if you're a seasoned player.
They don't
I think
even
it's
with
it's
much
a very
utility.
different economic system. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that they're not even having much utility. Like Prince Julian, like have no abilities. What I know is low cost mana, but yeah, it's just it's more for
Right, but then you could
collection.
see a round where like it's an 11 mana
Yeah,
round, and maybe Prince Julian's really the best play you could make in that round because you could get 9 mana of dudes on the board, and that takes down the match better than like even I don't know, that 5 mana +1 stats to all your guys, and then you play a bunch of cheap dudes instead.
yeah, but
Maybe
how
Prince
often?
Julian's better there.
How often would that happen? Like I mean, like the utility of the card is like almost like non-existent, but the value is there because of the collector. Like as you mentioned, from the
Yeah,
collection
I
standpoint.
totally agree, but I don't know if you're familiar with like card game player categories, but I consider myself a spike, which is a player who like wants to play at the highest competitive level. So when I play, Magic the Gathering tournaments, I would say, what is the best deck? I don't care if it's even got like a tiny 0.0001% chance better to win than another deck. I want the best 75 cards possible, and I'm willing to pay for them whenever if I need them for a tournament. With Splinterlands is very interesting because you're not queuing for a tournament with a specific deck. You queue with your whole collection, and then you get a rule set, and then you have to figure out what cards to play. And so it's one of these like very unique card games, and that in order to play it optimally, you actually need to have every card in the game fully max level. But that's not how the game is designed, right? It's like the game is designed in a way that they expect players to have weaknesses in their collection. And sometimes you're going to get a rule set that works very well for a super specific summoner or card that might be expensive and most people aren't going to have. And then if you're the one person that has it, it's almost like a free win.
Yeah, the other thing about Splinterlands is almost every, like they're trying on every something like out of the balance or like overpowered combination, they're trying to put in there a counter. So getting an optimal deck is kind of like overstretched, because usually on every optimal deck there is an optimal counter deck that can usually counter well that one. So it's kind of like also the mind game of, okay, I'm thinking now, since this rule set goes for this, and probably my opponent will go for this, then I'll go for the counter of that. So yeah, it's like you can never be even if you have all the cards in the game, I think you can never be that person who just knows, oh, this is the rule set, I know if I put these cards I'm going to win. Not to mention rules that change all the time, but even if you have all the cards and you are like, okay, for this rule set I know what to play, I mean, you don't know what your opponent is going to play, and that sometimes can change your plan
I
drastically.
definitely think like you'll never get to 100% win. Like even if you had like every card in the game
Yeah,
max level,
and you're
yeah,
the
sometimes you're going
super,
to run into somebody who has powerful enough cards that calls the strategy you're going for and just counters you.
and you're the best player
Um,
in the world. Yeah, you still, yeah. I think you cannot get the 100% chance to win. But what I got from what you told me so far is that you are aiming for champion. So that's all I needed to know. That's where you're heading.
we'll see. Yeah, it really depends on like how the game progresses. You know, one thing I was hoping for was that the newer sets would be higher print run, cheaper cost. That way, you know, the game could slowly get more accessible over time to people who want to play like, you know, a newer standard format. I think it's really important if a game wants to cast a wide net and have a lot of players that you have a lower barrier to entry to getting to something like Champion, at least in one format. And that format could pay less than another format, but if it's not accessible to somebody in any way, I think that you're going to lose certain players. And that's fine if you just want to, you know, let those players go play another game. But I will say, you know, we might be missing out on an audience that would really love to play this game at a higher level, but that just can't afford to do it. And the way to, you know, I don't want to ruin the value of the older cards that are really powerful, but having like, you know, Rift Watchers or a future Rift Watcher set be like a quarter the price that it is, or you get, you know, 4 times as many cards when you buy a pack, it could be a nice way to get people into the game with a slightly more competitive collection, that's not quite as high barrier of entry.
Yeah. Uh, well, I'm thinking now things like once Rebellion is out, things will change drastically. As in, a lot of untamed cards are really pricey now,
Untamed, yeah, Untamed is pretty oppressive,
and
for the
they
modern format right now.
and they're moving out in like the next 9 months or so. So that's where the big shift will come, I think, because I think Chaos Legion cards are cheap, relatively cheap, and
They're definitely like easier to pick up.
yeah, and so will be
And
the Rebellion
oh,
ones. So I think it will be pretty easy to compile, like not very expensive to compile a deck, at least for the lower leagues like silver, gold maybe. And
yeah, I just feel like you know, Rift Watchers is pretty expensive. Even like I think it's slightly more expensive than Chaos Legion. Like it's
it
a
is,
smaller run, so there's not as many cards to get, but some of them like what is it, Agor, the dragon? I
yeah.
mean, that guy's pretty expensive. This new promo card seems pretty expensive. That does the
Ushnur,
resurrecting.
yeah.
She's super. I mean, those two combined are like such a powerhouse in the dragon cards.
Yeah, but the
Uh,
whole idea of a mini set is like yes, those are cards that complement your play, but you don't really need them per se. And I do understand you from the position of competitive player. Oh, you want to compete, so you want the good cards no matter what they cost. But talking about like the general audience, I think there is a nice level of progression where you don't need as much for the lower leagues, and then once you get in like you did, and then you enjoy the game, and you're like, okay, I think it's worth my time, it's worth my investment. I can make the jump to the next level, and you did. So I'm thinking if you did, like other people can that are interested to actually progress in the game can do it too. So I'm just it's not as inaccessible, especially when once Untamed rolled out. It's not really that inaccessible to get to the higher levels if you really put the time and dedication into it, in my opinion. And I do understand that there are a lot of people that will come if things are cheaper, but then it will be back to the same problem. Like they come for the cheaper stuff, and then they want to extract as much as they can, so they can like just leave. I mean, it's not like they don't have the incentive to invest to better themselves to move up. They just want to extract because people
Yeah, so I
that
think that's why I was trying to, talk about how it really is a progression game. And that's why I think it would be kind of empty if I just bought my way into Challenger right now. Like I could buy like a maxed out Kitty and Yoda and Zaku and like some of these other really powerful cards and then just start slamming like these massive lineups over and over again. And I'd probably get through Diamond really quickly and then up to the other players who have those cards at the top of like Challenger. But I think that, part of the game for me is like progressing. So I made what I thought was a reasonable investment into the game. And then I started playing to see how I progress. And so you were asking me, where do I see myself in 6 months? And I'm like, well, I guess that just depends on how the game itself progresses. So if the game, if the next set is competitive and reasonably priced, and I feel like for a reasonable amount of money, I could push myself up a little bit farther, or the amount that I'm making off of playing the game by just grinding to diamond over and over again starts giving me more and more chests that open up enough cards that suddenly I'm at the point where like I can get further into diamond or I can start hitting challenger. You know, I could see that happening. But it's hard for me to know right now what it's going to be like in 6 months because I don't know how the game's going to progress. I don't know when Untamed rotates. I don't know what the meta looks like when that happens. I don't know how expensive the Chaos Legion cards become when they stop getting printed. I don't know how expensive the new set's going to be. And so all of these things are like these unknown factors for me that make answering that question really difficult.
well, that's why I said I made the additional note that if everything goes your way, like if thing goes your way, like what
Yeah.
would be the perfect case scenario for you?
I
And
think I'd agree with you. I'm aiming for challenger. If everything goes my way, yeah, I'd like to. I mean, in every game, Hearthstone, I hit top 100 legend. In Magic, I hit top 100 mythic. In this game, I'd love to hit top 100 on the leaderboard. That's always a goal for me when I play card games. And so, if I if things go my way, I would totally expect myself to get there.
so if you have to weigh in uh, competitiveness and earning potential, which one you would say is more something that you focus on? Like which have heavier like heavy weight on your decisions?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say when it comes to playing games, like competitive play is more interesting to me than earning potential. Because I think like you can just invest in things and make money. And I do that already. So like I feel like I scratch that itch with traditional investments. And there's probably, I mean, maybe a game could legit be the best investment you could make. But a lot of times I feel like, investing in something tech related or a software as a service or just like some random product or something is going to make you more money. But a game is also amazing product sometimes. So it really just depends. I mean, it's a really interesting question. Like, it's different for me. I think if I was just trying to make money on Splinterlands, I wouldn't be doing it by playing the game. I would probably be yield farming the SPS like BNB token or SPS ETH token, making yield that way, or buying like Splinterlands nodes, trying to like scalp them off of the Hive website, and then just like selling the rewards to pick up cash until I had enough to pick up a second node. Things like that. I would be doing spreadsheets and analytics and trying to figure out just like what is the highest APR within the ecosystem. And if that's playing the game, then I would play the game. But that's not how I treated it. I treated it more like I want to play the game somewhat competitively. Maybe I'd like to win a tournament or something. I want to get better at the game, learn the game, and either make content around the game or create a guild. And like part of like Alicoin's mission is like educating players on playing these Web3 games, and how to play them, how to be successful in them, what cards to buy. Join our guild. We're giving out free cards to people who are in our guild. So those, I can't do those things without actually playing the game. Like if I was just investing in SPS ETH, then yeah, I could be making a bunch of money, but I'd have no idea how to play the game, and I'd have no idea how to run a community within the game. And so that's part of my decision making process in getting into it. It's not just making money; it has to be playing the game, because that ties into the overall business of what we're trying to do with Alicoin.
Yeah, I was just saying like waiting in, but yeah, obviously, the fun from playing is outweighs the desire of earning, I guess, in your case.
I think
I was
it's definitely a combination of the two, right? Like if
sorry.
it was, because I mean, part of why I love Web3 games is that I'm not sinking thousands of dollars into Hearthstone cards just to have nothing to show for it at the end of 4 years, right? So do I want the cards to retain some value? Do I want them to, be usable in tournaments where I can get value? Absolutely. I care about those things too. Um, but there's some amount of money that I'm willing to just kind of burn in the having fun. Like I pay for silly Steam games that I play for a couple hours, or for, 30 hours, beat the game, and then I'm done. I don't mind spending money on games to have fun. I don't mind spending money on entertainment in general. I think that there's a limit to that spend. And when it starts to get to the point of, Splinterlands cost, which is pretty high, it's in the thousands of dollars, I don't want to burn that money up. I want it to have some residual value. I want it to have some earning potential in the game. And so it is definitely a factor in the decision making. It's hard for me to say like one is more important than the other, because I see games like Splinterlands as a really happy marriage between the two things. And so it becomes a little bit of a balance of like, am I buying this card because I want to have fun, or am I buying this card because I think that it's the most, earning potential of a card that I can buy? And I think about that with each card that I'm buying on the marketplace. And that's almost like a game in and of itself that I find pretty fun.
So 50-50, let's call it 50-50. And
Yeah.
I,
I think yeah, it's a medium, it's a balance, and it's fun either way, because like, whether it shifts from 45 to 55 sometimes, that's part of the game, and I find that game fun.
yeah, I was going through some of the chat here. Like there are some questions your way, so maybe you can answer. There is first a compliment I said from Matt Clark. He says, been missing some of you guys while I'm asleep. Mason needs to get less interesting so I can go to bed. So feel guilty about keeping the man up at night. Then there is a question from
Australian time zone, it's tough.
yeah. So there is a question from Voazena. Is Mason, what do you think about land? Are you interested to buy any plots? Or have you already? Maybe?
So land is one thing I just haven't looked into yet. I haven't had an easy time finding information on it, like a quick summary. So I don't know if somebody wants to explain to me exactly like what the value of land is. I know one of the guys who's big in our Discord, Mr. Monopoly, Brybro,
Yeah.
he's like really big into
Yeah,
land,
he is.
and he thinks it's going to be a big deal. I
It
guess
will.
I'm curious, like, what about land? What is it getting you? What's the future direction of land?
Well, I mean, in a summary, in a short summary, because it's probably a topic that can take days. In a short summary, there will be a phase two of the battling implemented at some point, where you, after you see your opponent's squad, you get a certain time to use items or spells that you have created, and actually the owners of the land will be the ones that will be able to create. So those things won't be created by Splinterlands, they will be minted by players that own land and sold on the market on the marketplace. So the only place you can get them is either craft them yourself on land or sell them on or buy them from the marketplace. And all creation will be associated with resources. So you need to resource different type of resources. You need to upgrade your buildings. So different types of land will do different types of things. And actually, Brybro is your guy because on his channel he talks about land only. So he had a lot of nice interviews with people talking about land, and I think he's the encyclopedia of land. And I was actually talking with him of getting him on the show, so maybe I will one day. But yeah, if you check out Brybro's Twitch, probably you learn a lot about land, and I think it's worth knowing.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I understand, and that sounds pretty interesting. I probably will pick some up then. I'll have to look at what it costs, how many spells you get. Is it? I think you always hit like the utility level on an NFT like that you want. So I guess what I mean by that is if I have 2 plots of land, am I getting enough spells that, I feel like I can play competitive at the level that I'm at with the number of spells that I'm getting? And then it's like, do you want to buy more land past that? Because if it's just generating more spells than you actually need to use, you're probably going to go sell them to other players. And then it's like, okay, well, is that the best use of the money on like an investment level? Or should I just use that money to pick up another node and then go buy the spells from the people who own the land?
Yeah, it's
Because there's different ways to play the ecosystem in that, right? So
we don't know about details about at all. Like we were hoping to shoot for a review by the end of the year, but it's still very much everything is like in the clouds. But whatever information, as I said, there is, Brybro has it because he's collecting it. He's pretty interested in it. But so basic answer was yes, you might be interested, but no, you have not bought any, right?
sounds cool though. Like I really like that idea of you queue your lineup, you see your opponent's lineup, and then now you can make a couple changes with some spells. That could be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
It definitely adds a new layer to the game. It's really interesting.
and takes rid of some of the bots, I would say, or botting abilities.
They'll find ways around that, right?
Well, I mean, hopefully they won't because like you have to make a decision, and bots are not good at making decisions. They're good at following rule set, like following certain orders that are set in their programming. But making decisions, I don't think it's like that's the only place where we can probably we are better than bots. Is like we can actually we have intelligence to analyze things. Like we don't follow just blindly. We yeah
I guess it depends on the level of sophistication of the bot because
yeah.
you've got bots that play chess, and chess is a really hard decision making game, and bots are better at it than humans.
Whoa,
So
yeah.
it's like, if somebody actually takes the time to run the simulations of the game with, the spells being cast in different ways, they're going to pick up pretty quickly on, these are the commonly best ways to play the spells. And then it just comes down to like how many players are playing the game at the really high level where they're finding innovative ways to play spells that can beat the traditional ways that you would normally just play a spell every time. And maybe like if you're winning that 20% of the time, or if you having that extra level of intelligence helps you win it 20% of the time over a bot, bots are still going to exist. They're just going to take those 20% of losses because they're not good enough at the decision making process and play the spell in the most basic way possible because they're getting a good return on their investment regardless. So it really just comes down to like how skill intensive is using the spells, and is there like a basic way that a bot could play the spell, or how high level do we want to train the bots? Like if we actually take neural nets to this and we run millions of simulations, it probably doesn't take long because you can play this game out pretty quickly in comparison to something like Dota, and bots are getting pretty good at Dota. So I could definitely see somebody running a neural net over this, coming up with the best bot algorithm, and then selling that to the whole player base and just recreating the problem all over again.
Yeah, well, hopefully not. I mean, It's a little bit gloom
Hey,
and
I'm
doom
I'm definitely in the
scenario.
hopefully not category. I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest problems with play to earn games is bots because you want to make the game as accessible as possible, but the more you do that, you make it accessible to bots, and then the bots come in and they just swarm the marketplace, and suddenly real players can't get an edge anymore. So you have to have some sort of skill component that's really hard for a bot to play within, so that the players can take from the bots rather than the bots taking from the players.
And I think the team is doing pretty good job on like restricting the earning, but because that's the only thing that drives the bot. Like if there is no potential to earn, there is no need to run the bot, or makes no sense. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see. Like I am glad that they already took that route. So I'm seeing positive changes, which will come to that hopefully later if we have time. But let me try to catch up. PJ's Dizico, okay. Max Maka says Skyweaver seems interesting, but matches are quite long. I agree, but so are Hearthstone, and you have no problem with that. So I guess that's not a deterring factor. We'll see for somebody that is in Splinterlands and that is used to those 2 minute max matches. That's something that when you go somewhere else and you meet that time consuming resistance, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going back to Splinterlands. But the opposite is probably like if you're used to long matches and you're like, oh, now I can play like in this instead of one Hearthstone match, I can play like 20 Splinterlands. Maybe I do that for a while and tech. Yeah, I think that's one of the most catching thing is the short matches that
Yeah, it's interesting because I oscillate on this myself. Like sometimes short matches are really awesome. I love like being able to queue a game in 3 minutes and also not being like tied to the computer in case I get an important phone call or something like that.
yeah.
But there's other times where you want to sit down, you want to get immersed in a game, and you want to really like have the time within the game to skill display. So like in Splinterlands, you play one dude for 3 minutes. If you lose because you made a mistake, but then you realize what that mistake is, you don't have any time to, make up for that mistake and end up beating that person. The person's already gone and on to another game, and it's kind of like, oh, I wish I had, a best of 7 versus one person, and the match was more like 21 minutes instead of 3 minutes, so that I could really like get a feel for how this person plays the game and what they're thinking and what their collection's like and what they tend to lean on in their collection. And you get a little bit of that with their whole match history and everything, but maybe the rule set doesn't match well with their match history. And so you don't really understand what they're going to do in that situation until you've played against them. And then by the time that you've played against them and you realize your mistake, you're just onto a whole new rule set against an entirely different player. And you don't get that satisfaction of like, the kind of mind game of the dance you do with another person for half an hour. Like in a Super Smash Brothers fight, you might get wrecked in the first life. And if the game was just over, you'd have to move on and play another person. Well, in Smash, sometimes you have these crazy comebacks where something clicks within a player and they realize like, oh, my opponent is doing the same thing over and over again. They're making the same mistake. And I didn't realize that at the beginning of the match, but now I'm realizing it and I can start to, punish them for making that mistake. That's something you get in like a 30-minute match, but it's not something you get in a 3-minute match.
Well, you get something, yeah, not the same, but something similar in tournaments where you play like best of three, best of five, or yeah. But I do understand that sometimes you just want to invest the time. I'm just
Tournaments
taking like,
tournaments is actually a really interesting way to have that sort of skill expression within the game. And I'm really interested in Splinterlands tournaments. I like that a lot. I haven't participated in a lot myself. I don't find the like anytime tournaments to be as interesting, and I
yeah,
don't see as many of
I
the live
understand.
tournaments.
Yeah. Well, see, each has a pros and cons. Like one, you can just submit your teams whenever, and the other is like you get the experience of best of three or best of five. But
Yeah, definitely.
tournaments are improving greatly over time, and Weirdbeard is doing a great job in that. And I'm thinking there will be more and more to show for. But there was a question about tournaments later on. I just haven't reached there, but there is a question from Ray Urbino 5. What can you say about Filipino players? That's a tough question.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean,
That they're from
I'm not sure. I'm
Philippines.
not sure exactly. I get okay. So take this how you will. I'd say Filipino players are probably going to be on like the poorer side in comparison to a first world country player. Like obviously there's going to be some rich Filipinos, but I guess this question is more like what can you say about third world players and like how do they fit into this ecosystem? And so the first thing I would think is they're not going to have access to the higher level of the game, right? Because they're not going to be able to make a multi-$1,000 investment that's like buying a house for them. I don't know. Maybe it's not quite enough to buy a house, but there's definitely a disparity in real estate prices between the two countries, and I think that those players are going to have to like make harder decisions on their entertainment budget to be part of this game. But that said, they also have the earning potential at the lower level where it can be more meaningful income for them to even play in like bronze and silver. So I find that to be very interesting. Like you saw that with Axie Infinity, for instance, where those guys were like getting sponsored by other people to grind the game and they were making a percentage of that income and that income was like actually really meaningful for them. I think that's really cool. I think that it's awesome that players can get to have some fun playing a video game and have some earning potential at the same time, and maybe they don't get to play the game at the higher level, but they do get to grind their way through the game and they can open up a lucky card pack and that can be like a substantial amount of income for them. I think that's really cool. And I think it's especially cool. This is like a totally side tangent on this idea, but I we're definitely not there yet, but I do think that the world is slowly inching toward this sort of like world of abundance with a lot of automation, and the floor for having like a paying job is getting harder. As like imagine a world where like all of these truck drivers are displaced by self-driving trucks. Then they're going to go take other jobs that they can fill, and that there's only going to be a certain amount of those jobs, and so the spillover is going to end up like working all the way down to the lowest skilled workers. And what are they going to do? Well, creating entertainment within an ecosystem by being an actual player that other people can test themselves against has value, and it's proven to have value because multiplayer games have a ton of value because of the multiple players playing the game, right? Like Hearthstone wouldn't be an interesting game if you could only play it versus computers, and Splinterlands wouldn't be as interesting of a game if you could only play it versus a computer. And so I think you have to have these real players, and they deserve to get a small amount of income for dedicating their time to playing the game. And so the Filipino players are going to be like this massive wave of players that don't have as much economic opportunity within the world just because of the place they were born into. Maybe being the sparring partners for richer people in other countries is a way that they can earn some income, and those other people who are richer can have more entertainment in getting to spar against all of these random players. And so that's kind of like my weird thinking on Filipino players is like they're getting some economic opportunity in this new online digital realm where they get to spar against these like richer, first world country players. And the first world country players are putting money into the game to play it at a different level, but still want the sparring partners from around the world. So, and maybe there's like some synergistic stuff happening there between all of these different people who come from different backgrounds.
On that topic, yesterday I came upon a very, let's say, interesting tweet that I want to share. It totally connected with the topic that we are on. Like a person's tweet is Ignite 21. So he says, I earned more than my teacher's salary, who said I have no future. My teacher's salary, 40,000 pesos per month. My earnings in Splinterland, 53,500 pesos in 15 days. I am very grateful for what I was given, what was given to me, and will take care of it. Let's grow together, Splint Farms. So, yeah, imagine your teacher tells you you're good for nothing, and then you go and earn in half the time more than they earn for the whole month. I mean, that's kind of like shoving it in
I
their
can totally
face.
resonate with that. I mean, my teachers never told me I was going to be nothing, but there were definitely, teachers that I would be playing Magic the Gathering in the corner of the class, and they're like, "Why are you wasting your time doing this? You should be studying." And I never wanted to study. I wanted to play card games.
Yeah.
And even in college, I skipped out on studying all the time so I could go play in Magic tournaments. And like, did I win money? Did I win a ton of money off Magic tournaments? No, I won some, but like I also spent a lot of money on the game. But it led to a very enriching career path for me in the world of video games, working on a gaming team, working with my wife and doing sponsorships and picking up card games so that we can teach other players to play them. This is like, it's really been a career for me, and it's because I had that fascination when I was younger. And you can see that happening for this player, right? Their teacher says they're good for nothing, but they go home and they play their passion anyway. And now they're out here like making real income more than their teacher off of the game. I think that type of opportunity is going to pop up for more and more players as these play to earn games get popular, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, because what I was going to say as well is like there might be difficult to invest in the game, but also the earnings are way more meaningful. So if you earn $5 a day, you'll be like, yeah, I mean $5 a day. What can I do with? I cannot even find a freaking, even cannot even buy a freaking burger. But for them, $5 is a lot. So the earnings there are more meaningful. So that gives them the opportunity to have yeah, for some people to have even careers like or decent living just because of a game, which we
Yeah,
we don't have for now. Like yeah, you earn some, you happy, you grow your collection, but it's not meaningful money as of yet. I think in any way.
it's very true. It's a very stark contrast from the wave of mobile games that we've seen in the past. I've played some silly mobile games. One you've probably never heard of. It's called Legends of Soulguard,
No, I
where you
haven't.
just like you had like little dudes on a board on a mobile game, and I played it on my phone for fun. And every once in a while, I'd put $20 in, $30 in, and I'd grind for resources in the game. And you end up realizing like a year later that you spent all this time playing this game, getting good at it, competing, building up a collection of cool dudes that you can go battle with, and they're worthless
Yeah.
because they're just digital items stuck within your account on the game that's tied to your Apple ID, and like you can't sell that. And same thing with Hearthstone and a ton of these other games that I've played over the course of my life. I think it's really cool that Web3 is leaning into, well, these assets are tradable and they have economic value and you can sell them if you want to go buy a burger.
Yeah, oh, I just don't want to think about how much money I have spent on World of Warcraft over the years. So I'm just
Yep.
even just the monthly subscriptions. You don't spend on anything else, but just the monthly subscriptions is probably quite a hefty amount already. So I mean, was because I stopped playing it, but yeah, you don't feel it, but also you have nothing to show for it after that. Like yeah, you waste your time and your money, and you get nothing to show off, not nothing to show for.
Yeah, I think that there's I see this in a lot of gamers. There's this divergent pathway at that thought. So for some people, they're like, I'm spending money on games because I want the entertainment value of the game, and I want the game to be the best game that it can be to entertain me, and that's it. I don't want to make money off of it. And I think those games are fine to exist as well. I think if you want your game to be as pure as possible, where finances aren't a part of it, those games should exist, and those players should feel free to go play those games. And so if WoW is that game for a lot of people, where it's like I spend money every month on it, it's like going to the movies. I watch the movie and then I leave. I don't need to have like an NFT of the movie that I can go sell on a marketplace and make money off of.
Yeah,
I think that's fine. It's entertainment budget. But I think that the problem is that a lot of these games have become somewhat predatory in how they monetize entertainment. They're finding ways to sort of milk their customers for a little bit more money than they feel comfortable spending. And that's where it's like, if you're going to do that to your player base anyway, if economics is going to be part of your game, you kind of owe it to your player base to give some of that economics back to the players. And that's where games, like Hearthstone really bother me, because it is a game of economic value. There is an economy within the game of dust and gold that you are opening up cards and you're dusting some of them to make other ones. And most players don't have a full collection. And it's not just entertainment value anymore. Like people feel tied to their collections. They feel like a sunk cost fallacy. Like, well, I've spent so much money on these packs that I might as well buy the new set because I have no other choice. I can't give up on this collection that I've built. And for that to be married with a pure entertainment value game, I think is a huge issue with Web 2 games.
yeah, and I think that they just don't have the incentives